Yes, I'm Jamie, head of engineering at Hex. We're an experience design agency, so we're really focused on how our websites and our products are used to ensure that both our customers and our customers' users get a really fantastic experience with our products. Naturally, Sanity lends itself fantastically to that mission. Customizability, the openness, they really allow us to explore and improve on what makes a great CMS. So I want to talk about page building and what this might look like if we really kind of focus in on that experience and try and dial it up. I think we're very familiar with this kind of page builder or modular section approach by now, where we kind of create an array of sections that can be added to a page, and those sections have kind of set fields for data and a component to render it. You can add sections to the page, change their order, edit their content. You get some flexibility around what your pages can kind of look like. And this is great compared to site builders. It lets editors focus on the content and not on the design, which is what we want. There's fewer controls. There's very little training needed. Compared to page templates, it gives editors a lot more kind of flexibility to present their content in the best way. And then compared to, with the sections themselves, they help ensure brand consistency. So again, compared to site builders, they're ensuring your content fits together well and is presented well. But often when using modular sections like this, our customers or our editors even find themselves with content that maybe doesn't quite fit into a section. So borrowing an example from the Sanity, one of the Sanity blogs, say we have this hero and it has a heading, a tagline, it has this image, this background image. But let's say the client or the company, they've signed a new partnership deal and they need to put in some partner logos in this hero. There aren't any fields in this hero section that would allow them to add partnership logos. So they need to get in touch with us. They need to ask us to add the ability to have partnership logos. We need to talk it through. We need to do a design. We add in sort of functionality. We QA, we deploy. All of this stuff takes time. And then they might need partner logos on another block somewhere else on the website. And they might need more content in sort of other sections that don't support that yet. So we add more controls to more sections to help them support that content. Maybe we add controls for the ordering of some of that content as well. Maybe they need variations. So all of this occurs design, development, QA, costs, and it really impacts on editors' autonomy and content velocity for that editor, as well as the kind of usability of the CMS. You can imagine all of these controls kind of really starting to clog up a section, particularly if you only want a few things and you have to kind of wade through. So I want to present a bit of a different approach to modular sections, and we call these modular blocks. At its core, it's very similar. It starts with this array of blocks that can be added to a page, but these are known as outer blocks, and they're usually focused on the layout of the content that will go inside of them. And then they usually have another array of blocks inside of them for inner blocks, and inner blocks can be thought of as more base types of content. So titles, rich text, a group of buttons, partner logos, an article feed, things like that. Rather than building one section and saying, this is the content that can go in that section and these are the fields that we have, we build an outer layout or multiple outer layouts and then let editors choose what content is going to go into the inner section of that layout. So if we look at this in a live example, we can see coming down into our modular content section, we've got a title, we've got some text, and we've got kind of a button group. And we can go in and move these around on the site, and we can bring in and other content. So say we want partner names. So we may come in and just add a few of these in here. And we can now get this content straight away because we've built this inner block. So they'll come in here, and then again, we can still move those around and manage that kind of inner content as much as we want. But we can also then kind of take that to other blocks. So if we move down to this section block, maybe step one, we want to also add the same thing there. So similarly, we put this block in, and we'll see it start to fill out with content, and we'll have this little ticker kind of going around in here. And you'll see that it's changed color as well, because that's kind of managed by the outer block, by this thing that's controlling the layout and that side of things. But it gives you this very nice, very easy to use control, that good flexibility over the content without having to be restricted to the fields that you have. And you can use it anywhere on the site, anywhere that we've kind of got inner content. But with this, there's obviously a fair amount of controls then. It's not just adding a single block to a section and filling out the predefined fields that we've got. So it's possible that this makes things a little bit harder. We're trying to improve the editorial experience, make it faster. So we've taken a few steps to try and really improve this. And the first is with reusable blocks. So the first thing we've done is to build out the ability to reuse these blocks in a kind of composition. So you imagine as an editor, you're building a landing page, you're building content pages, maybe PDPs or anything like that. And there's a type of section that you need over and over again. Maybe it's an image on the left with a title, text, and buttons on the right, that kind of thing. Maybe you want a reversed version as well. With the reusable blocks feature, you can build it once using the same tooling with your outer and inner blocks, but then you can include it in any page later on. It will just kind of import the individual outer and inner blocks just as if you built it there and then in the page by yourself. And in terms of ease of use, this gives us parity with that modular section approach, because new editors can just choose from a list of predefined sections without having to try and build their own straight away. But then it also gives them the flexibility on top of that to reorder the inner blocks content within, and also to add more content as they need it as well. We have a section in the structure for viewing and creating reusable blocks. And you can also kind of save one or more blocks straight out of a page that you've already built, put them in here, and then reuse them for the future. And you can take this as far as you like. We've got a landing page template, for example, set up as reusable blocks. So you can create a page, pick your landing page template, change whatever copy and images you need, and then just push it live. It's really fast. Our editors are completely autonomous to be able to create more landing page templates and reuse them themselves. But again, choosing from a list of blocks and reusable blocks may not be that easy unless you know what those blocks are and what they look like. So you can already see where I'm going with this block picker. But a further addition we've made, and something Sanity themselves have also very recently built a version into their core of, is a more visual block picker. So you've probably, like I said, seen this already. When an editor adds an outer or an inner block, they're going to see this dialog. It's going to have the names and the images of all their blocks. And when they're creating reusable blocks, they can upload their own image as well that will be used in this section. And it really helps kind of clarify what a block looks like and helps editors to choose the right block that they need right away. And they're split into categories too. We've got usually sort of hero section, reusable, synchronized, niche as our kind of standard ones. And they have sort of tags and a search input as well. So editors are able to add their own blocks and manage that sort of tagging system as well. Or we can do that as developers. And lastly, when we're editing pages created from this modular content, the default UI would just kind of show you the preview of the outer block as well. So you can get that really easy editor experience. So in order to improve the block UI, there's two things that we do. The first is we ensure all of our outer and our inner blocks have a really good preview. So you can kind of see what's going on here. But then the second is, rather than traditionally with the Sanity array, you just get that top level and you can click into it to see more. But what we do is use a custom component to kind of decorate that outer block array component to display the inner blocks on top of it as well. This provides a complete overview of the page content without any of the other controls getting in the way. Editors can see all of their content. They can rearrange the inner blocks within here, or they can rearrange their outer blocks. They can delete inner blocks. They don't have to go into the outer block first to do any of that. So it makes it a lot easier to manage with this kind of UI on top of it. So we've looked at increasing our editor flexibility and autonomy through this outer and inner block approach. We've looked at improving content turnaround time through reusable blocks, and we've seen how to make them much easier through this kind of visual blocker picker. And yet there's still more that we can do to improve this editorial experience. So when we're editing content, we started to see a number of chore tasks come up. So things that needed to be done to allow the editor to do their real work, things that just kind of get in the way and take time. So reducing or eliminating these kind of chores that really help for a more sort of pleasing experience, less effort, less time used. So one chore we saw when using this was trying to keep the content of some blocks in sync across different pages. So you could imagine sort of a signpost at the end of certain pages which have a specific call to action on the page content. In the past, we might create like a signpost document for this, and add a signpost sort of field on the page and let the user kind of pick the appropriate signpost. But this is then scoped to just signposts. What if there were other content that editors wanted to keep in sync, like other pieces? So instead, we look to create what I said earlier was synchronized blocks. So these are blocks they can created with the same tools as modular blocks, but they'll appear in this kind of synchronized section in the block picker. And synchronized blocks can then just be included in the page like your reusable blocks or like anything else, but they'll appear slightly differently. They'll appear here with their image and their title and all of that, but rather than any controls, it will just be a note that says, this is a synchronized block. It mentions what desynchronizing it will keep it in here, and there'll be buttons, one to go straight to where to edit it, and one to just desynchronize it entirely. And if they do that, it will just drop the outer and inner blocks in the page as if they had just added it from a reusable block. So it allows them to make their edits to all versions of a synchronized block from a single place, which is part of what we love about Sanity is distributed content and managing it really well. But being able to desync that block then keeps that flexibility as well. And then another chore that we recently started looking to tackle was changing the outer block, but keeping the inner blocks the same. So this currently requires kind of deleting the block, adding a new one, recreating the inner blocks inside of it. So it's a little bit of a time sink. And we haven't built a solution for this yet, but we've decided to create what we call kind of transforms on blocks that allow them to be changed into other types of blocks. So here we have a hero and a section. It has a transform function defined that shows that it can be turned, this hero block can be turned into a section, and then a map to show what should be happening to the individual fields on the hero and the section. The modular content just gets mapped, and then its background video and image get turned into the appropriate fields in the section block. So that approach allows us to really cut down on time spent manipulating these outer blocks, and just make that a little bit faster. So we've talked about, I think, what is a really good standard for page editing with this approach, but I want to dive into some of the code that kind of powers it, so we can kind of get a bit behind the scenes and talk more about that. I don't have time to go into everything, but I'll focus on the outer and the inner block aspect for now. So if I bring this up. So we take a bit of a monorepo approach to our code bases to kind of help separate concerns. We've got our apps and packages areas. For our modular content, we have a package that kind of manages it all. So our block code is all co-located. Everything that a single block needs is all found in a single directory. So I'll show you how a developer adds a block. The first thing they need to do is create a new directory within here. So if we're adding an outer block, for example, they'll just come into the outer block, create a directory, and they just need to add these 4 to 5 files, and then everything else is taken care of. The block will appear in the block picker, it will appear on the front end, it will render all of its data correctly. That's all done by the lib. So in order to create a block, they need their block schema. They need a block config, which basically just has the name in. This is anything that's shared between Sanity and the web app. They need their block component, so the thing that's actually going to get rendered on the front end when this block is included, and they need a web file. So this is everything that the web app it needs to import. So it's all in sort of one file for the web app to do. And then lastly, an image if they want one to appear in the picker. So under the hood, we're doing a few things to kind of load this block. So the very first thing is that on the Sanity side of things, we've registered 2 object fields. So these are going to go into Sanity's schema types. We've got one for outer content and one for inner content. So then these can be used in any document really easily. These have everything they need to be a complete field. So it has all the components for the block picker and for the input for that. And it also loads all of the blocks in as array items that can be picked. So we use Vite to load all of these individually. So if I pop open this, you'll see that I'm just globbing all of our blocks, all of our outer and inner blocks, using Vite, mapping them out, and then just passing them through to this blocks object schema. And that just gets used to render out our blocks from our modular blocks function. And then we just define our array members. So that's really quick and easy for that. We also have helper methods that allow us to kind of define other modular content fields. So specifically this, we can use get modular blocks anywhere we'd like if we want to limit the blocks that are available to a specific outer block or to a specific page or anything like that. We can really cut it down by just using this function and just passing in a list of blocks that we want to include or a list of blocks that we want to exclude. And lastly, each of our blocks has a schema that has this helper. So this define outer block helper sets up the components that are needed to manage how it looks, as well as some field sets to give us data under certain places so that all of our blocks feel very similar. That might be, for example, a block anchor, like an ID on a section or on our outer block. So that's all managed for us automatically as well. The web side of things, there's two kind of main aspects to this. There's a grok query that, again, kind of pulls in all the individual grok queries for all of our blocks and then puts them onto a single grok query that can be included in our kind of page renderer. And then there's also a modular content renderer component. So this modular content renderer, you can stick this in any page template or any file, and then just give it the data from your page query, from that block query. And then it will just render through all of the different components. It will set a class on there. It will manage automatically the kind of spacing based on your kind of CSS spacing rules between your blocks, and just make it really easy to use modular content wherever you need to. In terms of the block spacing, that's one of the two main challenges we have. The other being using the kind of visual editor. So I can talk quickly on both of those. In terms of block spacing, we use rules between the blocks. So you could imagine if you add two sections and they might need slightly different spacing between them compared to a hero in a section, or compared to a section and a signpost or whatever like that. And then similarly with inner blocks, you might have different spacing there as well. So text that comes straight after a title might need different spacing between it than text after text, then text after a ticker, etc. So working closely with design, we have a bit of a design system for how those things can work, both in plain text here, but then also built out using the lobotomized OWL selector and then combinations of kind of is. So we basically look at each of our blocks and go, by default, there's a certain spacing between them, but then here's all of our individual rules that will work between those blocks. And when you come to add a new block, you can, most of the time, the default spacing works well, but if you need it to be slightly different after a header or a hero or something, you can just come in and add a quick rule and change that spacing that you want. The very last thing we did, I mentioned with visual editing. So as we're pushing content sort of through from our page query into our modular content renderer, which comes into our section block, which might come into another modular content renderer, and then into our inner blocks, you can imagine we kind of lose track of the path of the data in order to get things like the data sanity encode attribute for visual editing. So if I just show what I mean real quickly, say this is our page query. So we've got our modular content under here and our inner content under here, and this is one of our inner blocks. If you're in your inner block and you have an image and we want to make that clickable like this, so we have a nice, I just had to refresh it. So you have the little blue outline from Sanity, and we can kind of click on our image to come straight to the field, right? So this is what I'm talking about. But to get this, we have to add a Sanity attribute to this image so it knows what field it's related to. So we can kind of lose that through the data, but we've created these two, this component and this provider that kind of manage that for us. So the way that kind of works is you can wrap this around as you're passing data through. You can wrap this around your components and just say which field you're using. So this is the content field. So and the provider will start to keep track of that. So we're into our content field here. And then if we go into the next component, which is the modular content renderer, it's been given this data in this red box. We can then wrap another one around this and say that we're now in key 0 of our content. So we're now in this one. And when it loads that next component, the outer section, again, we say, right, well, we're passing content through, so we need content. And it goes all the way down to essentially the final component, which has received this image, and it doesn't need to know where it's come from. It doesn't need to know where it is in this data. It can just call the encode data attribute function that Sanity has given us in the original query, and it spits out the correct data based on how it knows where it is in that array. So you can still use this with kind of visual previews, with this live edit mode and all of that stuff. It all still works. And that's essentially how we do outer and inner modular content. There's a lot more I can cover here. I know I've kind of rushed through some of this towards the end, but I'll be releasing kind of demos and more talks on this. And if you've got any questions, you can get me on Twitter or LinkedIn or in the Sanity Slack. I hope you've enjoyed this talk. I'd love to hear from anyone that gives this approach a try. I think it's absolutely fantastic the way it works with its inner content, and it's definitely felt really flexible, really powerful, and just gives back a lot of autonomy to editors that I think they sorely miss. But yeah, thank you so much.